There are moments in life when we encounter disrespect, and it feels like the very ground beneath us has shifted. The sting is real, the emotions are raw, and our instinct is to retaliate, to speak out, to defend ourselves. But sometimes, in the quiet after the storm, we find a strength that we didn't know existed within us. In this space, we can choose a path of grace, one that doesn't require a loud response to every slight or injury. We can choose to remain silent not as a sign of weakness, but as a powerful act of emotional control and resilience. In a world that often values loudness over thoughtfulness, reacting immediately to disrespect or provocation can feel like the only valid response. We're conditioned to believe that standing up for ourselves means raising our voices, asserting our position, and confronting those who wrong us. But what if we challenge that notion? What if, instead of shouting back or seeking immediate retribution, we chose silence? Silence, when chosen deliberately, is not a sign of weakness or submission. It is a powerful demonstration of self-control and strength. Think about it for a moment. In those instances when you're disrespected or belittled, your automatic instinct may be to fight back, to lash out, to defend your honor. But in those moments, we often lose sight of the bigger picture. The power lies in not reacting. When you remain silent, you are not a passive participant. You are exercising your control over your emotions and your response. It's a deliberate decision to maintain your inner peace and composure, rather than letting the negativity of others dictate your actions. Real strength is in knowing that you don't have to defend yourself at every turn. True strength doesn't need to prove itself. It remains steady, calm, and unshaken. When you remain silent after being disrespected, you're saying that you are grounded enough in your own sense of self-worth that you don't need validation through confrontation. You're affirming that no external force can disrupt your inner equilibrium. The person who reacts impulsively, who meets every challenge with aggression, is often the one who is ruled by their emotions, unable to control their impulses. But when you choose silence, you tap into a deeper form of strength. It requires courage to resist the urge to react emotionally, especially when disrespected or hurt. The strength to stay quiet comes from the understanding that your peace is not negotiable. You recognize that engaging in an emotional exchange with someone who disrespects you will only drag you down to their level. Instead of engaging in the drama, you create distance from it. In silence, you take control of your own narrative. You are the author of how the situation unfolds, not the provocateur. It's essential to understand that silence in this context is an act of strength because it demonstrates emotional intelligence. It requires maturity to recognize that not every conflict requires resolution through confrontation. That sometimes the best response is no response. By choosing silence, you refuse to let anyone else's negativity define you or your reaction. This doesn't mean you're ignoring the disrespect or letting it slide. It means you're choosing to rise above it. You're choosing to preserve your dignity, your peace, and your emotional well-being, instead of allowing a fleeting moment of disrespect to take up permanent space in your heart. Moreover, silence provides a kind of power that words can't always achieve. When we speak in anger or frustration, our words often become weapons that can hurt both others and ourselves. But when we remain silent, we avoid this harm. We also leave the space open for reflection. While the other person may expect us to lash out, our silence creates an atmosphere where their actions are questioned and weighed. In essence, your silence forces the other person to deal with the discomfort of their behavior, while you remain untouched, focused on your own growth and inner strength. So remember, silence is not about surrender or weakness. It is a conscious choice that reflects emotional maturity and personal power. It is a deliberate act of holding onto your peace, your dignity, and your sense of self, even when others try to take it away. It is not only a form of strength, but a shield that protects you from the negativity that others may bring into your life. In a world filled with distractions, demands, and constant noise, peace can sometimes feel like an elusive concept. We're often caught up in the rush of life, the pressures of meeting expectations, and the weight of responsibilities. But one of the most vital acts of self-care and personal growth is recognizing that protecting your peace is not just important, it is an absolute priority. At its core, peace is a state of emotional and mental balance. It is a sanctuary that allows us to thrive, to make thoughtful decisions, and to respond to life's challenges from a place of clarity rather than chaos. But too often we allow external forces, people, situations, misunderstandings to disturb our inner tranquility. We feel the need to react when someone disrespects us or when life isn't going according to our plans. Yet in the process, we sacrifice our peace for the momentary satisfaction of being right or getting the last word. This is where protecting your peace comes into play. It is about consciously setting boundaries, recognizing when your mental and emotional resources are being drained, and taking deliberate action to restore balance. Your peace is yours to protect. No one else will do it for you. In fact, if you allow every person or circumstance to disrupt your peace, you'll find yourself constantly on edge, reacting to every little offense and never fully grounded in your true self. One of the most profound aspects of protecting your peace is learning when to disengage. When disrespect arises, whether it's from a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger, it can be tempting to respond in kind. We may feel that we need to defend ourselves, to prove that we are worthy of respect, or to correct the other person's behavior. However, this impulse often leads to unnecessary conflict, and more importantly, it places your emotional well-being in jeopardy. The reality is that engaging in every battle leaves you drained, both mentally and emotionally. It distracts you from your purpose, your goals, and your peace of mind. Instead, protecting your peace means recognizing when to walk away from a situation, even if you don't have the final say. It's choosing not to engage in a toxic conversation, not to entertain negativity, and not to allow your emotions to be stirred by others' words or actions. This doesn't mean you're being passive or submissive. Rather, it's an act of deep wisdom and self-respect. You understand that your peace is a precious resource, and you will not allow it to be wasted on people who don't value it. But there's more to protecting your peace than just disengaging from conflict. It's about creating the conditions for peace to thrive in your life. That means establishing boundaries with people who continuously disrespect or drain you. It's about saying no to situations that cause unnecessary stress and yes to those that nurture your soul. It involves taking time for self-care, whether it's meditation, prayer, quiet reflection, or simply being alone with your thoughts. It's about curating your environment, both physically and emotionally, to foster a sense of calm and stability. What happens when you make the decision to prioritize your peace is nothing short of transformative. You begin to see the world differently, not through the lens of reaction, but through the lens of intention. Every time you choose peace over conflict, you strengthen your ability to stay grounded in turbulent times. You develop resilience, emotional intelligence, and a deep sense of self-worth. You start to trust that, regardless of the chaos around you, you have the power to remain centered. Additionally, protecting your peace teaches you how to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. It gives you the space to reflect on the situation, assess what truly matters, and choose a course of action that aligns with your values rather than your immediate emotions. It allows you to act with grace, wisdom, and emotional control qualities that elevate you above the negativity and pettiness of the world. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is the ability to let go of things that no longer serve your peace. This includes grudges, past wounds, and the need for validation from others. When you are steadfast in protecting your peace, you release the burden of carrying emotional baggage. You stop letting other people's behavior dictate how you feel. This liberation frees you to focus on what truly matters: your goals, your relationships, your growth, and your happiness. Ultimately, protecting your peace isn't a passive act. It's a proactive, intentional, and empowered decision to honor yourself. It's about refusing to let anything or anyone compromise your inner tranquility. When you make peace a priority, you align yourself with a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment. And when life's inevitable storms come your way, you'll find that you have the emotional resilience to weather them with grace without losing the center of your being. Your peace is a reflection of how you value yourself, your time, and your emotional health. Protect it fiercely, because without peace, everything else in your life becomes harder, more complicated, and less enjoyable. Peace is your foundation, and once you make it a priority, everything else will fall into place. In a world that is increasingly dominated by the need for validation and immediate response, silence is often perceived as weakness or indifference. Yet when it comes to dealing with disrespect, silence can be one of the most powerful responses you can choose. It's not a passive act, it's a deliberate and intentional decision to withhold a reaction and instead communicate something much deeper. When someone disrespects us, it's easy to feel the urge to defend ourselves, to lash out in an effort to restore our dignity or prove that we're worthy of respect. The temptation to react in anger, frustration, or even hurt can feel overwhelming. But what if we chose not to react? What if, instead of responding with words or actions that could escalate the situation, we simply remain silent? This choice of silence doesn't mean we are ignoring the disrespect, nor does it mean we are tolerating it. Instead, it sends a powerful message that transcends words. In choosing silence, we communicate that we do not need to prove ourselves. There is profound strength in refusing to engage in unnecessary conflict. By holding back from reacting immediately, we are asserting that the opinions or actions of others do not have the power to dictate how we feel or how we respond. It is a clear and unequivocal statement that we are in control of our emotions and behavior, and that we will not allow external negativity to disrupt our inner peace. The act of silence in the face of disrespect forces the other person to confront the discomfort of their own actions. When we react impulsively, we give the person who has wronged us the chance to explain themselves, to justify their behavior, or even to escalate the conflict. But silence removes that opportunity. It puts the responsibility of reflection back on them. When we refuse to engage, we challenge them to consider the impact of their actions without the crutch of our emotional response to fuel the conversation. In that silence, they must come face to face with the truth of their behavior, something that may be far more powerful than any verbal confrontation. Furthermore, silence is a form of self-respect. It demonstrates that we value our time, our energy, and our emotions too much to waste them on situations that do not serve us. When we respond in silence, we are prioritizing our own well-being and growth over the need for validation or a momentary sense of vindication. We understand that responding in anger or frustration may give us a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it will not bring us lasting peace. Silence, on the other hand, allows us to retain our integrity, our composure, and our sense of self-worth. Silence also communicates emotional intelligence. It shows that we are wise enough to understand that not every situation needs an immediate or public response. Some conflicts are better left unresolved through dialogue, particularly when that dialogue is likely to lead to more harm than healing. By choosing silence, we are exercising our ability to assess the situation rationally and determine the most effective course of action. Sometimes silence is the most eloquent and effective response, for it demonstrates the maturity to rise above petty disputes and emotional exchanges. Moreover, responding in silence also serves as a protective shield for our peace of mind. When we engage in arguments, especially with individuals who are disrespectful, we allow their negativity to infiltrate our mental and emotional space. The more we engage, the more we feed into the drama, and the less we preserve our own peace. Silence acts as a safeguard, ensuring that we do not become entangled in a toxic exchange that could damage our emotional health. It is a way of protecting ourselves from unnecessary harm, allowing us to move forward without carrying the weight of conflict. Silence, in many ways, is an act of leadership. When we choose to remain calm and composed in the face of disrespect, we set an example for others. People are often watching whether we realize it or not, and the way we handle conflict influences those around us. By responding in silence, we show that true strength lies in restraint, not in reaction. We model emotional regulation, grace under pressure, and the power of not allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner state. This can inspire others to adopt the same approach and to respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. Additionally, silence can often give us the opportunity to reflect on the situation before responding. When we feel disrespected, the emotional energy inside us is high. The urge to react immediately can cloud our judgment and lead to words or actions we might later regret. Silence gives us the gift of time, allowing us to regain control of our emotions, assess the situation, and decide on the best response, if any. It allows us to process our feelings and approach the situation from a place of calm and clarity, rather than reacting out of raw emotion. In many cases, silence is the ultimate act of dignity. When we are disrespected, the most dignified response may not be to lower ourselves to the level of the one who has wronged us, but to rise above the situation altogether. Choosing silence is a sign of emotional maturity. It's a way of saying, I am above this and I do not need to engage in a battle that will only diminish my worth and energy in silence. We maintain our dignity by not allowing another person's words or actions to diminish our sense of self. Ultimately, responding in silence sends a clear message that we are in control of ourselves, that we value our peace and self-respect above the need for instant gratification or confrontation. It signals to the world that we are emotionally mature, self-assured, and wise enough to choose the high road in the face of disrespect. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that we don't need to engage in every battle to win the war. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words ever could. In moments of disrespect, our immediate instincts often urge us to react, to defend ourselves, or to protect our dignity. These reactions are natural, our emotions surge, and our minds race with all the things we want to say or do in retaliation. But in those moments, we must resist the temptation to act immediately and instead give ourselves the space to reflect before reacting. When someone disrespects us, there is a powerful tendency to want to prove that we are worthy of respect. We feel the need to correct the situation, to set the record straight, or to assert ourselves in a way that reestablishes our value. However, reacting impulsively can cloud our judgment, leading us to say or do things in anger that we might later regret. In that state, our emotions control us rather than us controlling them. The instant rush of defense or offense may feel justified in the moment, but it rarely leads to anything constructive. Instead, it can escalate the conflict, leaving us feeling worse about the situation and about ourselves. Taking a step back to reflect before reacting allows us to create space between the stimulus, the disrespect, and our response. In that space, we can pause and regain control of our emotions. Instead of being swept away by our immediate feelings, reflection gives us the opportunity to think clearly about what we want to communicate, what our true goals are, and how we want to handle the situation in a way that aligns with our values. It is in this moment of pause that we can access a deeper sense of wisdom, one that comes not from the immediate urge to defend ourselves, but from the understanding of what will serve us best in the long term. Reflection also offers the opportunity to ask ourselves essential questions. What do I truly want to achieve here? Is my response driven by the need to be right, or is it about protecting my peace? Will responding lead to resolution, or will it only prolong the conflict? These questions help us clarify our motivations, preventing us from acting out of pride, anger, or ego. They guide us toward a response that is thoughtful, purposeful, and intentional, rather than one that is reactionary and emotionally charged. In reflection, we also recognize the importance of understanding the other person's perspective. While this does not mean accepting or tolerating disrespect, it does allow us to consider what might have led to the disrespectful behavior in the first place. Sometimes people lash out due to their own struggles, insecurities, or misunderstandings. Reflecting on these possibilities doesn't excuse their behavior, but it helps us to approach the situation with a sense of empathy, understanding that their actions may be more about them than about us. This shift in perspective can help diffuse our emotional response, allowing us to choose a more measured and thoughtful reaction. Furthermore, taking time to reflect before reacting enables us to consider the long-term consequences of our actions. Will our response contribute to a healthier relationship, or will it fuel further animosity? Often, reacting impulsively feels like a way of gaining control, but it can sometimes be the very thing that causes us to lose control of the situation entirely. By reflecting, we can weigh the consequences of our actions, ensuring that we are responding in a way that serves our well-being and our relationships in the long run. Reflection also gives us the opportunity to tap into our core values. When we act in alignment with our values, whether those are rooted in self-respect, kindness, or emotional resilience, we are able to maintain our integrity, even in the face of disrespect. Reacting without reflection, on the other hand, can cause us to stray from those values and engage in behaviors that are not true to who we are. By taking the time to reflect, we ensure that we respond in a way that is consistent with our best self, not just in the heat of the moment, but in the aftermath of the situation as well. When we reflect before reacting, we also create the mental and emotional space needed to break patterns of automatic response. So often, we react out of habit or past conditioning. We've been taught that when someone disrespects us, we need to react swiftly and decisively, or we risk appearing weak or submissive. But this automatic response doesn't serve us. It only perpetuates a cycle of reactivity that leaves us feeling drained and disconnected. Reflection helps us break free from these automatic patterns and choose a response that is aligned with our personal growth, peace, and emotional health. This reflective practice also empowers us to respond with authenticity. Rather than reacting out of anger, hurt, or fear, we can choose a response that reflects our true intentions, not our emotional impulses. It allows us to maintain control of our behavior, ensuring that our response comes from a place of clarity and self-assurance. When we respond from this grounded place, we communicate strength, dignity, and emotional intelligence qualities that not only diffuse conflict, but also earn us the respect we deserve. In a world that thrives on noise, chaos, and constant connectivity, it can be difficult to find the space for personal growth. We are constantly bombarded with external stimuli, opinions, distractions, expectations that can drown out the quiet whispers of our inner selves. Yet true personal growth is often nurtured in the silence. It is in the quiet moments, away from the clamor of the world, where we can truly connect with ourselves, reflect on our journeys, and cultivate the strength and wisdom needed to evolve. Silence is not just the absence of noise, it is the space where we can reflect on who we are, where we have been, and where we are going. In the stillness, we are given the opportunity to hear our own thoughts, to process our emotions, and to evaluate our choices without the influence of others. It is in this space that we can hear the voice of our own intuition, the quiet knowing that guides us toward our purpose and helps us navigate the complexities of life. Without silence, we risk losing touch with this inner voice, becoming swept away by the opinions and pressures of others. In silence, we are able to engage in deep introspection. We can examine our behaviors, attitudes, and habits from an objective standpoint. We can identify patterns that may no longer serve us, and we can take time to understand why we repeat certain cycles or react in particular ways. This self-awareness is the first step toward true transformation. Personal growth requires us to be honest with ourselves, to face uncomfortable truths, and to confront the parts of us that need healing or improvement. Silence creates the space for this self-examination to unfold naturally, without the interference of external judgments or distractions. Moreover, silence allows us to create clarity. In the hustle and bustle of everyday life, it is easy to become overwhelmed by the noise of other people's opinions, the pressure to succeed, and the constant striving for validation. When we step into silence, we give ourselves the chance to clear away the mental clutter and focus on what truly matters to us. This mental clarity is essential for personal growth, as it helps us make better decisions, set meaningful goals, and align our actions with our deepest values. In silence, we can reconnect with our core desires and purpose, reminding ourselves of the dreams we may have forgotten or the aspirations that have become clouded by distractions. Silence also provides the space for mindfulness and presence. Personal growth thrives when we are fully present in the moment, free from the constant chatter of our thoughts or the distractions of the world around us. In moments of silence, we can practice mindfulness, being fully aware of our thoughts, feelings, and surroundings without judgment. This practice helps us become more attuned to ourselves and the world, enabling us to respond more thoughtfully to life's challenges. By embracing silence, we train our minds to focus, to be in the present, and to cultivate a deeper sense of peace and contentment.